Shoshana, where are you in Portugal?
So right now, now I'm going to fumble it. We're in Cascais, and we're headed to Porto tomorrow.
Beautiful. I'll be speaking in Porto in November. But it's beautiful. I was just in Portugal just a month ago. It was very windy, but it was very beautiful.
I love Porto area, and I went to Estoril, Porto, and then Lisbon and Sintra.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
really nice.
Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome to FemTech Live Lounge, a quarterly discussion that celebrates the intersection of technology and the AI industry. This series is presented by Virtual Patent Gateway. Today's discussion is led by Dr. Grace Wang, partner in the intellectual property practice of Paul Hastings in New York. Dr. Wang leverages her PhD in electrical engineering to aggressively represent technology companies in IP litigation in federal district courts and the International Trade Commission. Joining Grace is Sudipta Dasmohapatra, Senior Associate Dean of MBA Programs and Professor of the Practice Business Analytics at Georgetown University, Shoshana Rosenberg, SVP of WSP USA, and Noelle Russell, Microsoft MVP AI and thought leader in Agentic AI. And with that, I'll hand things over to Grace.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. I love your voice. It's like the most soothing sound. Great voice. Hello, everyone. We have an amazing, very esteemed panel that spans the gamut from academia to legal to thought leadership in AI, and we have a few authors on the panel as well. So I'm just going to ask everyone to maybe just introduce yourselves at a high level, and then maybe we'll get more into your personal journeys later on.
I'll go first. Hi. Super excited to be here. Very, very cool. If you are in the chat, I already see Kimberly's in the chat, so it's super nice. I know some of you are watching, but yes, hello. So it's really cool to see everybody. I am Noelle Russell. I lead a company called the AI Leadership Institute, and we specialize in going from the boardroom to the whiteboard to the keyboard. And what that means for every one of you is how important this technology is. That's what we're talking about today. How important this technology is. Not just for, I always say the rising tide of this tech raises, I want it to raise all the boats, not just the yachts. But that's been my experience so far, is helping kind of the biggest and brightest companies be successful. But now I'm really focused on equity for everyone. So thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. And yes, of course, I love AI. So if there's any I love AI people in the house, please let yourself be known. Talk to you soon. Should I popcorn it over to Shoshana?
Hi, so I'm Shoshana. I was already introduced, but I also wear additional hats as the very proud co-founder with Emerald Deleu of Women in AI Governance, a knowledge-sharing community with a real theory of change behind it that you can look into, and also Logical AI Governance, which is more about making sure that professionals are ready to deal with the larger impacts of AI on organizations, the beyond compliance components. So I'm thrilled to be here with this incredible group of women.
And I'm Sudipta Dasmohapatra. Nice to see so many of you here, and welcome. I am the Senior Associate Dean of MBA Programs, as I was introduced as, but I'm primarily a faculty, and I love the AI and analytics area. I've been in this area for more than, I would say, about 17, 18 years now. I started in consulting as a quantitative modeler, and then kind of shifted into academia and have taught AI analytics. Actually, we never called it AI. I think many of you know this. Like, we called ourselves quantitative modelers, or data experts. And so I started from there. And currently in my role, I basically still teach a course in managerial statistics and another course in healthcare AI and analytics for the MBA students in the program.
This is amazing. Thank you so much. So can you all share a little bit more about like your personal journeys? Like, how did you find your way into tech and AI? and specifically, like, what were there any challenges that you encountered, and what did you do to like kind of overcome those challenges? Noelle, maybe we'll start with you.
All right, I was gonna throw it to Sudipta, but that's okay. All right, I felt like she was ready to go. But so nice. Thank you for letting me go first. I will share just a little bit. Of course, I always tell people, like, if you want, you could just Google me or become friends with me. Some of you are my friends. Thanks for being here, y'all, and showing up at the last minute. I sent you a message and you came. So glad to have you here. My journey into AI specifically started about 10 years ago. I was an early member of the Amazon Alexa team, and I was the only woman on my team, the only Latina, but that didn't really faze me, because that's kind of my reality today, 10 years later, and has been my reality for 28 years of my career. However, what was different, though, is that I was also the only parent on the team, and the only, the only caregiver, and the only cat owner. So I was a divergent thinker on this Amazon team, but I realized how powerful that symphony of talent really is when we create these systems and when we scale these systems. So I recently wrote a book called Scaling Responsible AI, and it really was a culmination of these experiences that, as I went from Amazon to Microsoft to IBM and Red Hat, I realized that there's some problems that most organizations kind of fall into. And we'll talk about that later, throughout the next half hour. But my journey really started pretty humbly. I didn't graduate from college. I didn't graduate from high school. I did go. I didn't like any of it. I always say I got my degree from the University of Barnes & Noble. So for those of you who don't know who I am, that's probably a good sense of the kind of peeps you're talking to.
And that's so great. Sorry, I just wanted to mention, like, I think the audience might already be aware, but we're going to be raffling off a number of Noelle's books to the audience. So we're very excited to do that today.
I'm happy to go next. I have to say, Noelle, people sometimes say that when I'm energized that it's contagious, but you just pull everyone through. It's so wonderful. So I'm very eager to read this book because I know your voice is going to carry through. So I will answer, though. I'll jump in and say that actually my background started in an interesting way. Grace, I was an electrical engineer in the Navy. So we have that slight overlap, right? And so that work with the technology and having sort of gotten out of the Navy and then thought, well, I'll go to law school. And then I had a sort of peanut butter chocolate moment where I was like, I'll just take the law school back to the Navy. And I went into the JAG Corps for a while. And it was just a very interesting evolution because I had always wanted to focus on human rights law. But I've got really grounded in technology in so many other ways that at some point I also started a technology company while still running alongside a lot of different kinds of international law, certainly focused on privacy, which was thankfully my tether into human rights that I'd been waiting for so long. And so I came through that. And I will say there is something about having long been the liaison between the lawyers and IT, or the lawyers and security, where the security and the IT components that I saw no one handling or that could be better handled became part of my job too. So one of the challenges there was becoming a translator and then finding a way to help enrich components that were really outside of what was officially my remit, and finding that, getting the support that I needed for that, which I was always very fortunate enough to do. So that was a big one though, right? Was where you want to help solve problems, but maybe officially you're in one part of an organization. And getting the support that would let you do that.
You both have such great stories. I actually had a very humble background, began in India. And, since a kid, I was really interested in math. Okay. I did an undergraduate dual degree in physics and education. But upon graduating, I decided I don't want to be on the math and the quant slide. And so I started working for actually a nonprofit in India. And while I was doing that, I was working on some marketing related project for Village Industries. And so I developed this interest in marketing. And so I came to the US to pursue a PhD with a specialization in marketing, really. And as part of the marketing, program, I had to take 6 credits in statistics to actually graduate from the program. So very reluctantly, I go to this first stat course. It's called Stat 500. And I go in, and there was this amazing faculty member, a woman, and she taught. I mean, she really was such a powerful teacher that I just got, so interested in statistics. And so I found myself taking 18 plus credits in stat. I didn't have to take it. I took it, and I really found myself drawn into this application of statistics and data into a variety of marketing related problems. And so when I moved after my PhD, when I moved into the consulting field, I actually utilized everything that I learned there into the problems that businesses are looking at. So that was pretty much my journey, I would say. And when we think about challenges, my challenges were mostly technical in nature. How do I really learn modeling and different type of programming skills? And so one thing that I would say is I had really great mentors, and I seeked them out. I was not afraid to go out and say, please teach me. And to tell you the truth, most of my mentors were actually males. And they really, when you go out there and you say, I need to learn this, please teach me, they tutored me. And I found that, that I really learned through that mentorship skill. So it's really, was kind of start of my journey there.
It's incredible. It's so interesting that we all have had like our own paths, sometimes meandering in different ways. I myself as well have meandered, but that we've all been drawn to like similar areas and are covering different aspects of it from different angles. So related to that, maybe Sudipta, I'll start with you this time. How has the role of women in tech or AI evolved that you've observed over the years?
I would say, I just have to say that in a variety of roles where I worked at, I actually really did see women, although not many of them, right? I mean, traditionally, we didn't see a lot of women that were working in this technology data area, automation area. And especially, I was in consulting when I was working with financial services as well as the retail sector and healthcare sector. Even on the client side, we didn't see many women in that field. But I really do think that today we're seeing a dramatic increase in female representation across all the different levels of technology and AI. A lot of my alumni, I have 9,000 plus alumni in the MBA program, and I would say that I interact with so many of these C-level executives and those that are working in very senior level or even at other levels. I'm seeing quite a bit of female representation, whether it's in coding, whether it's in product design, whether it's in machine learning, data science, or other kinds of leadership roles. And if you think about some of the role models that we have, like Fei Li, like I don't know how many of you know her, but she is the co-director of Stanford's AI lab, and she's really a person that I look up to because she drove this innovation towards human-centered AI and more of the people to start, more women, for example, to get involved in this whole area of AI. If I look into our own programs at Georgetown, I launched the Master of Science in Business Analytics program. Within that program, we have between 35 to 40% women, which is really good. They are really thriving during the classroom, but also after graduation, and they're performing at par, if not exceeding, many of their peers. And so, all of these examples, even in our MBA program, they're not just entering the tech, but they are really leading the way forward. So I think that much of the progress has been made. There's still, the journey is far from over, and we really need to raise awareness, that all kinds of affiliated groups and everybody needs to get an opportunity in tech and AI to work with it.
So I'll stay in the middle again and jump in. I will say there are a couple of things that strike me. One is that yes, I think we see disparate representation levels, certainly in the more legitimately technical aspects of this, and that is shifting somewhat. What I'm focusing most on is, of course, from the women founders in technology, there have been so many great ones, but they don't get the money, right? So I've seen so much of that in so many incredible colleagues, including one who created the first GDPR tech called Eurocomply, right? There are so many things that just don't get the funding that they should, where you do have technologists and the women. But what's interesting is the proliferation, like there's so many women who were pulled into privacy. And privacy has been told that they're supposed to own AI governance, which I think is a bunch of nonsense, but I think they're very well qualified, but that doesn't mean it's going to necessarily have the perfect overlap. But what you are seeing is so many women in that space rising up to make people aware of the extent to which governance involves so many other groups, right? Anywhere that AI is having an impact, or which is everywhere, right? Or that has a potential to shift the terrain, whether it's accessibility, disability, universal design, right? You can break down this elephant into so many pieces where we realize that every aspect of society and of our organizations brings something to the table that needs to inform certain aspects of how we respond, navigate, govern, and create with technology. So I think I'm seeing more voices come from outside of what would have been called technology in what is a much broader interpretation of the governance space, and it's such an empowering moment to be a part of.
I love it. Oh my gosh, I'm inspired just listening to it. I would probably build on both of those things by sharing a little bit about my own journey, both from being in a situation where I needed to say yes to an opportunity, and then also being in a situation where I was trying to pull people along with me. And my entire career, I have crazy ideas all the time. I'm one of those people. I'm an idea person. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wake up, I get an idea, I build a website, grab a URL, I set up a, PayPal link. Like I'm very, very ready to go. Many of you in the chat know the kind of person like that is like this. And so when I was at Amazon Alexa, I was constantly thinking about how to push the envelope. Same thing at Microsoft. Like when everyone was learning kind of in these microcosms, like these micro little silos that they had built for themselves, I was pushing the edges of what that meant. And to give you an example, at Amazon Alexa, I was, like I got an email from Jeff Bezos and he's like, hey, join this cool team. I'm like, yes, I want to be there. I found out later it wasn't from Jeff Bezos at all. It was from like the recruiting team. But either way, it was like, it felt personal. And I was like, I'm going to do this for you, Jeff. I got you. But I wanted to build skills on mindfulness and kindness and positive prayer. And people did not think it would work. There was no category for wellness. There was no category on Alexa for, like meditation. Like that all came after I kind of was like, went to the mattresses. And that's what I hope you all will recognize in the leaders that you have speaking to you today, that many of us have been in this room at this moment where we're like, we have to be the voice that says, when they say no, we say, let's go instead, right? Like we have this mental kind of change that happens where we're like, maybe you might be right, but let's try anyway. And on the other side of that, the other big barrier I run into is that I got on Alexa. I saw that now Alexa in my mind was like early productized AI. So I was very excited to help people. I'm like, this is it. This is going to change your life, change your trajectory of your career. You could be in any part of Amazon and get a job at Alexa. Like, let's go. And I specifically went to women and people of color and people that look like me. And I'm like, come on. And they said no. They were like, no, for all sorts of reasons. No, my boss just promoted me. No, I just finished learning this other thing. No, I was on Fire Phone and it failed and I don't want to fail again. Like all sorts of reasons. No, I just had a baby. Like, and what I realized is that in those moments when we say no, it's fine. Like I've said no very rarely, but I do say it on occasion. But in that moment, I realized that all the reasons they said no back then didn't equate to anything today. Like that job that they thought was so important, that promotion they felt so loyal to, that manager that they were loyal to, like all of that is gone now. And so I encourage people to think about like, oh my gosh, if there's an opportunity like learning AI, jumping into data analytics or data engineering or getting into this space, realize that like there is no, I think the biggest barrier is ourselves, is our belief that we could do something like that we could jump into a role like that. So that's my biggest concern.
I have to say, I feel personally outed with the whole, I had 10 ideas this morning and I bought a URL. I feel very seen and also j'accuse. So, okay, I'm just gonna be quiet.
We are friends, of course. Yes.
That resonates with me as well a lot. Like when they say no, I say let's go, or we say let's go.
That is right.
We should retitle this. That's amazing. So Shoshana, so that you're not in the middle, I'll start with you for this next question. What do you see as today as being like the biggest barrier for women who want to enter tech or AI? And is it the same sorts of barrier that you see for women who want to succeed?
Oh, that's a really rich question. So I will say the biggest barrier that I see for women who want to enter tech or AI is generally there's like this invisible wall. It's almost like a sci-fi thing where they're like, I'm not a technology person, right? So I always start by let's just talk about basic logic. Let's talk about propositional logic and predicate logic. Let's just work through the things that you're comfortable with, and let's see how much that aligns, right? So I do think there's a certain like if you're not a sci-fi person, if you're not a morning person, there's a barrier, right? And that first barrier is internal, and it's completely illusory. It's something you can absolutely walk right across. You just have to sort of hold your breath and jump in. So that's part of it. Then I think, of course, as I said, there's a barrier in terms of it's not always support, because if you're lucky enough to find good mentors, male, female, anyone, that's a wonderful thing. But sometimes you don't have the financial stability to jump into a new field, or you have a great idea and you help build the technology and you're not going to get funded, which isn't like a chip on my shoulder for things. It's more what I'm seeing happen with some really brilliant women. So I think there's also trepidation about entering something sort of, well, I got to be careful with this, but sort of like sports, right? If you're like, I don't feel like I'm strong enough to be out on that field yet, then people hold themselves back. So the difference in terms of success, I think there is something, of course, that aligns, and I'll try to wrap this up, but I think there is something that aligns in terms of holding yourself back through some sort of self-talk or the presumption. And so I guess instead of going in further to the success one, because I'll leave that for somebody else, because that can look like a lot of things, I do think there is something where you simply say, who has the world, because I don't think we decide who we are as much as we decide the actions we're taking, that the world shows you who you are by the way it reacts to you. So like, how has the world reacted to how I use my brain? How has my brain served me well? Like, can I count on it? Then you can probably also count on it in this other field, because unlike AI, you are not limited to what you were trained in, right? So I'll leave the second part for someone else, as I went a bit long.
And I can add to what Shoshana was saying. One thing that I completely agree with is we feel that technology, it's very early, right? When we are growing up, we feel technology is not within our reach or within our confines, like you mentioned here, right? So we actually have limited early exposure. I think, many women, girls, they are lacking the engagement with the STEM subjects because of, maybe it's because of stereotype, it's because of all kinds of things that you mentioned. And then the second thing that you mentioned is, role models, underrepresentation of people, visible role models that may not exist, or maybe you are not aware of that, right? So I agree with both of you. And I want to kind of get into what are the barriers you asked about, that women face once they are in the field. And I really think that is the real challenge. It's not just getting in, but it's really thriving in this particular field when you're in there. And I think there are lots of challenges, right? As I think about everybody that I've talked to in my alumni, like my friends that are around me that work in this field, or even other fields, I would say just having the work-life balance challenge is a real big one. How do we balance our professional responsibilities with things in our personal life, such as motherhood, or that remains a significant challenge. There are also there's one thing that I see consistently, which is we fail to advocate for ourselves. we do not advocate for ourselves. And I think that's the big thing that really kind of pushes us behind. And that's one of the biggest barriers, I think, that women are basically facing once they are in this field. And there are other things that could exist, which I don't see it in the organization that I am in, but could exist within organizations, which is really could be cultural or workplace biases that might impact a sense of belonging. So I don't know, maybe you too, have other things to share there.
Well, I think we want to go into the last question, maybe.
Wait, I want to hear your answer. I veto that.
I mean, didn't I start this round? No, I didn't. So I don't know. I mean, I have some pretty specific beliefs. So, for example, Karen was talking about how I do think a lot of women think they need to be prepared and need to have the right skills and need to, like, they have a vision, and maybe it's the job description of what it takes to be successful in a role. And I actually caution us against this kind of full, bulleted list, full, compliance with a stated job description. Because now I know I've hired thousands of people in my career, and I realize that my job descriptions are not very good, that many times they're copied. And most times I don't know what I want. I know what I want when I talk to the person. So if you don't even apply, I never even get to talk to you. And so I'm watching now as we have millions of jobs that are open via LinkedIn and Indeed, millions, 4 million plus. And we have, let's call it millions of people looking for jobs, maybe hundreds of thousands that are qualified in this area. You're all certainly one of them because you're listening. But I'm very concerned right now that, one, the people doing the hiring don't know who they're looking for. And two, the people, us represented here, we are qualified to do the work, but we're kind of we're not allowing ourselves to say yes to the opportunity. And many times I think it's a lot of kind of imposter syndrome. Honestly, I think we can't do it. And then when we get there, we realize, wait a second, you all can't do it either. Like, everyone is learning on the job when it comes to production AI, everyone. So courage, I think, is really required as we move into this stage. Courage to just jump in. And while I agree with you, Karen, 100%, I think, yes, we want to jump in. We do want to know what we're doing, but at the same time, not looking for 100% compliance in a stated job description that people don't fully understand anyway.
I just want to say this, though, is that if this was, I have to be careful, but if this is a room full of men saying this, like, we're going to get into AI, we don't really know. Wait, does this sound familiar? We want to get into AI, we don't really know what we're doing. We're just going to forge ahead with courage and so that's my only thing.
That's literally what happens, though. It just happens in their own mind.
When we talk about it with women, we know, like, we hope that will be carried forward in a different. It's just funny to think about, because so much of what we're dealing with has to do with people who boldly went straight for AI and maybe didn't take all those cautions. But I don't disagree. I just think it's all about how you hear it.
Totally. We're going to move on to talk about mentorship a little bit. And Sudipta, I'll start with you, just because you mentioned, you had some male sponsors and male mentors over your years. So, for all of you, you're highly successful. You've reached like the pinnacle. You've reached leadership positions in all different industries. What role has mentorship played for you, and for people maybe less further along in their careers? How can they find mentors, and how can they cultivate those relationships?
I think that's a great question. I'll start by saying that really mentorship and sponsorship in my life, in my career, has been absolute game changers. And it's not only in my professional career, I would say also in my personal life. It's really like having, we all work with GPS, right? Google Maps. It's basically a Google Maps for your career, right? You may know where you want to go, but it helps if somebody can show you the shortcuts and the detours, right? So as I think about my PhD, my consulting firm where I was at, or even in academics when I started, I primarily had very good mentors, and I will tell you that I would say 90% of them were actually males. I would say some of them were brutally honest with me, and I was very open with them. So it takes a while for you to gain trust, I would say, from the mentors. But once you do that, they will back for you in those important meetings. And that's what happened to me. And whether it's male or female, I think that's, having good mentorship where you can trust them and they can trust you and you can share everything, your vulnerabilities as well. And then having them advocate for you in those important times is the best thing that is possible. And so I would say that, as I think about like our students, for example, in my program, like, I kind of give examples there because I work through this like every day, day in and day out, out in my life. For our first year students, we tell them that you need to seek guidance not only from alumni and your potential employers, but really look at your second years. Okay, these are the second year students that have experience in what you are doing currently, and so you can learn from them. They have gone through the same road. One thing that I basically suggest everyone is I always say have about 4 or 5 people in your immediate surrounding who you can kind of reach out to at any point of time. I have that. I have 6 people around me, at a variety of different levels that I can reach out to anytime I have to show them, suppose my resume, or I have something that I'm kind of mulling in my mind that I'm kind of go to them and even talk to them about it. I may have a really difficult presentation that I'm going to be providing, suppose to the faculty members, to the 150 faculty members, and I want to get it approved. I show it to a few of them and I present in front of them. So be proactive in seeking out mentors. I have been like that in my life, and I would say that it has been just a really great learning experience for me. But the crux of it is to really build great authentic relationships, and so be authentic, and show genuine interest. Be open about your aspirations and your challenges. And so that's what I would think from my perspective. That is the role that mentorship and sponsorship has played for me even now. Over to you guys, like one of you wants to take it.
All right, I'll go. Yeah, I think so. I have a slightly different approach. I was not very well supported in any sense of the word, by anyone along my journey. It gave me great examples, though, of the kind of leader I wanted to be, of the kind of person I would want to be when I became a leader in an organization. I actually found that over time, people, specifically women, were not very kind to me as I raised in the ranks. And, I'm ambitious. I hit numbers. I'm like, I like to succeed. I'm a winner. These are like the mental models by which I live. And that can be frustrating. And even my energy, right? I've had situations where I walk into the room and they're like, not today, Noelle. Like, not today. I can't have you. And I get it. But to your point, thank you for saying it. Like, I am authentically myself. You can go back and look at videos I did in 2008 on YouTube, and it is the same Noelle. Like, it's the same. So I have not changed, and I continue to just embrace who I am and show up authentically. But there are a couple of things that I have done that have helped me model success. So I do agree that the purpose of mentorship and sponsorship is to create that model that you can follow, and ideally have someone who will speak on your behalf. And that is amazing. I have not had that work out for me. I've not had people sit in a room and be like, here's a job for Noelle, and it be a better job than I currently had. So that being said, it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It just wasn't my experience. So I had to find another way. And the way that I did it, I kind of formed an idea called proximity is power, that I wanted to find people that were a bit ahead of me, like 5 years ahead, 15 years ahead, 30 years ahead of me in my career. And I wanted to look back at what they did when they were at my age, when they were in my stage of my career. I wanted to reverse. And now with the internet, you can do that. You can look back 10 years in my career and see, what was Noelle doing? Where was she working? What role did she have? And I found that was very powerful. I also have paid to have mentors that support me. So I call it pay to play. Like, I've got mentors that are billionaires, female billionaires, that I want to be in proximity of, I want to have a conversation with, but I recognize that they're not going to just be like, hey, let's have a free coffee, right? Like I recognize, and if they have a service, I will buy it. Like that's the way that I've engaged with women that are way beyond where I want to be, but where I want to be. And then the final one is bartering, that I always show up as, you know, the Go-Giver. How many of you know that book, right? There's a book called The Go-Giver. If you've never written it or never read it, you can take a look at it. But I loved it because it embodied the essence of show up and be ready to give instead of just get. Like, and I do this now with people I mentor. Like I said, the good news about having a tragic sponsorship and mentorship story is you become a very good mentor yourself because you don't want people to suffer in that way. And so, yeah, so those are the three things. I either pay to play, I either barter, you know, my services and say, what can I do for you in exchange for you helping me? Or what's the other one I put? Or you can earn your way. And in some rooms, I did the work and earned a seat at the table, but that's a longer journey.
Yeah,
it's a longer journey. So
yeah, can I just go in before Shoshana? Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to say that Noelle, I am with you where you said that, you know, this doesn't come free, right? So so when I got my mentorship or, you know, had these sponsors for me, I think the important thing to know there is that I asked for it. You have to get out there and say, I need this mentorship. You know, here's why, here's how I'm going to really kind of work with you, right? So you also mentioned the fact that, you know, you have to give back. That is very, very important. And I saw that, you know, even in my experiences. But the idea there is be authentic, be truthful, come out, as some of you here are already talking about in the chat. And if you don't ask, you don't get it. That's my motto, and I ask and I tell the students that as well. So Shana, go for it.
No, so I'm not as interested I am to talk about myself as to really reinforce some of the points. And Noelle, I find you so inspiring. I think you just became an inadvertent, unwitting mentor to me, only because sometimes the energy thing, right? I know that I have it too. But also it can be a real fuel. So I do want to say this. I didn't realize how I was doing it until you called this out so cleanly. And I think we really go toward that, people who make the world cleaner and simpler through calling it out for what it is. So first of all, I didn't have to ask for two of my best mentors because I earned them, because for whatever reason, they said, okay, she's working her tail off. And so I have had two unbelievably brilliant, which by the way, when you get to work with brilliant people, you run alongside them as hard and as fast as you can, right? Because it's just, they're not everyone. Two brilliant general counsels who I've had the privilege of working with, who have really, really supported and mentored me without me asking, because I was running so hard and they respected that. And that was a huge privilege and always has been. But I wasn't so bold as to pay for mentors, but I do realize that with all of these initiatives and things that I've started over the course of the last 20 years, I have paid the consultants I wanted to learn from. So my heroes in the spaces of inclusion, my heroes in the spaces of technology and privacy engineering, I have said, hold on, let me hire this person as a consultant. And sometimes you can invest in that relationship, it becomes a friendship, but sometimes you were just lucky enough to be privy to the candid opinion of someone that you said, I want to create a steel, sharpened steel relationship. And so the last thing I'll say is this. The most important thing, of course, is the authenticity of those relationships. But the easiest thing to create that is to not just sort of make yourself vulnerable, but to specifically say, I wish to be sharpened by this. And I am here to take on everything I can with whatever time you can afford me. And I think that that's a big deal. But just don't let that last piece where you think that you don't have everything that you need to be the right person to ask for that mentorship get in your way of at least asking.
I love that you've all highlighted authenticity as part of this, because I think that's over the course of my career, that's been also emphasized. And I feel like it's given me personally, like a lot more confidence as I've gotten more senior. It's like being myself, being authentic can lead to certain successes. So I'm just gonna, keep with that. So
I love it. Such good stuff.
So we actually don't have a ton of time left. I'm going to see what else I want to ask. Maybe Shoshana, or sorry, maybe Noelle, I'll start with you for this one, and then we'll just see how much time we have after this. We talked about going from no to let's go. Like, how do you encourage women to take risks in any field that they're in?
Absolutely. So it's actually a bit counterintuitive maybe. One thing that I do every single day, and there's a couple things, but one thing that I do every single day, and maybe everyone gets to share kind of your practice, but every single day, I do hard things. And I do hard things intentionally. It's called voluntary exposure therapy. And lots of people do this in different environments, like you said, regardless of your industry and really just in life. I'll give you an example. I cold plunge. So I have a big bath that's chilled to 40 degrees and I spend 4 minutes in it every morning that I'm home. And most people are like, that sounds awful. And I'm like, it absolutely is awful. Many times I look at it and I'm like, that's awful. I don't want to do that. But how many times in my day sometimes I end up in an environment where I'm like, this is awful and I don't want to do this. But that cold bath teaches me that it's only 4 minutes and 4 minutes comes to an end. And when I get to the other side, depending on how I handled it, I'm like, I'm a boss. Like, I got this no matter what. If I can handle 4 minutes in a 40-degree tub, like, there's pretty much everything else rolls off my back. And so that's what I encourage you. But here's the super simple thing you can just start with, which is habit tracking. Just create in your planner or on a piece of paper, just track a single habit for 7 days. And then when you do it for 7 days, you celebrate yourself, even if only in your mind. And the benefit of that is that when you are done with that, you will have proven to yourself that you keep promises to yourself. Simple, but super powerful to your psyche that I said I'm going to drink water for 7 days and I did it. I said I was going to brush my teeth for 7 days and I did it. Doesn't matter what it is. But once you do that, you start keeping promises to yourself, and that power can be turned on to any degree. So hopefully you all have a chance to say something too. Really quick.
So I'll jump in and I'll say, first of all, I love that. I talked myself into the Navy. That was like, I could do this for a month, so I could do it for a year, so I could do it for 4 years. So be careful with, but I really, really support it. I do want to say in terms of taking risks, I do think that just as if you were going to go out on like a hire wire, right? You don't necessarily have to you don't have to throw your career away to invest in getting better at something, right? So the risk part comes when you have that idea that won't leave you or that inspiration that you can foster. So the risk is being bold enough to try something new. And I think Noelle gave us some great, I think that's so important, and that the rest will follow. So just step outside your comfort zone, but you don't have to, take a massive risk unless you feel that there is a there.
Mm-hmm. And I'm with basically what both of you have mentioned here. I was going to say, take a leap, even if the water is a little bit murky, but if the water is a little bit cold, like your Noelle on your you mentioned, really growth happens when we stretch ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. And so the worst that can happen is that we learn something new, right? We fail, we learn something new. And so I, myself do that. And I constantly keep thinking, why do I do this to myself? I will say, I'm going to do this. It could be something very different. Like, I'm going to teach this course and I've never taught it before. And I am just going to learn, and when you are teaching something, you really have to understand it, right? And so I will always take these challenging courses or projects where I've not spent and done anything, and then I try to learn. But you need to have that confidence in yourself that you would be able to do it. And then the other thing that I would say that that is important when I take risks is I also lean on other people that are around me. Having that support structure where we can share, and we talked about this, be vulnerable, with the risks, and these folks can properly guide you. If you are able to take that risk.
Embrace the learning curve. That's what I heard from both of you, which is so cool.
Yes, I love it. Where are you going to keep going? Where are you going to say? Oh, no, I think we're on the next question. Okay.
We're just about out of time, actually. So I'm just going to quickly announce the winners for Noelle's book. It's Erica Watson, Kimberly L., Robin Mather, Melissa Cohen, and Brenna Holland.
Woohoo!
Congratulations.
Oh, these are great people. This is awesome.
Amazing.
If you could all please send a direct message to Ashley at VPG, that would be great.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I can't wait to chase down the book. And I'm so happy for this time. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you again to everyone in the audience for joining. Thank you definitely to our esteemed panel. And I think we can close it out now.